بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا وشفينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله وصحبه حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. الحمد لله. And we're continuing on in this book, and we're on page 41 for those who are following the book, Tawjuh Nabi. We're on page 41, about halfway through. So yesterday we were talking about this topic of connection or love to the dunya, the ephemeral world. So the dunya in Islam is defined as everything which distracts one from Allah. That which distracts us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what is defined as the dunya. And this dunya, as we mentioned yesterday, is the ra'su kulli khatiyah. It's like the head of every sin. Every point of distance, any way that we become distant from Allah can relate back to the dunya. So he talked about this, and then he talked about those who extol, those who have a sense of exaltation in their hearts for the dunya, and what a wretched thing that is. So he mentioned this hadith about saying, Ala inna hadha azzama mahaqar Allah, that the person who extols the dunya, who has a great love, he thinks the dunya is important within his heart. He thinks the dunya is important. Yeah, he thinks it's important to spend energy and to strive for the sake of dunya, for the sake of whatever it might be. That person will be in a sense of shame before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before the prophets, that how could he have spent his life in something so meaningless? This is one of the things they talk about, like regrets at the time of death. So they mention, in America, they did this thing where they had they interviewed different people, or they spoke to different people just before death, and they had the top 10 regrets for people. And from amongst them, amongst the top 3, was that I spent too much time in the office. I spent too much time in the office. Number 1, interestingly, was arguments. Yeah, that I had arguments and I had grudges against people. Yeah, let these things go, which is one of the important aspects of Islam. But a key one that was spending too much time in the office. So really now, like I mentioned yesterday, people are working hard to make themselves more anxious and more unhappy. It's a really strange situation, and it's trickery. It's trickery. This is either spiritual or human devils at work. No doubt whatsoever that people are convincing us that we need a bigger house, we need a better car, we need 2, 3, 4 cars in the household. They're convincing us that we need to live a certain way, have a certain type of interior design, have certain things within our life that we don't need, really we don't need. And sometimes it just takes a step out. If I was speaking personally in the field, because I was able to travel for a number of years, 4.5 to 5 years, and in different lands, what people would call the third world and beyond. I mean, a place like Yemen, 80% of the country is on the verge of starvation. It's the biggest humanitarian crisis since the Second World War in Yemen. You ask Allah for relief for those people, because they're living in very difficult conditions. But when you visit a place like that, you opens you up to a whole new way of living. We also visited Morocco and we lived there for a number of years. It opens you to a new way of living, and you realize how little you actually need. And then what happens is then you end up realizing, well, actually I could be spending my time drawing closer to my Lord. That same time that I'm spending at work, or that I'm spending in order to be able to go on holiday 4 times a year, I could just be using that same time to draw closer to my Lord. And the ideal, this is what we should aim for our children. The ideal scenario is that you are engaged in da'wah, that you spreading the light of Islam, and it's a means of income for you. It's a means of taking care of your needs. And this is what we should. And from many years ago, when we first went to Tarim in 2012, we were sat with Sheikh Hamid Nawaz, Hafidhahullah, from Liverpool, and he said that our ambitions for our children should be this, that we want them to be people who serve this religion, who spread this light of Islam, and they're also able to take care of their needs. they're also able to live a normal life and function, you know, and live within society on the basis of this too. Yeah, so this is really the idea. This is what we should be striving for. And really, to be honest, this should be right. We just need to abandon, just leave it behind. You just need to abandon this stuff. I mean, it really is pointless. It really is pointless. Like I said, I've met many people who live. Like we met people that have 8 children, husband, wife, and 8 children. They live in one room, and these people are the happiest people that I've ever met. The most joyous, optimistic, beautiful people you could hope to meet, to the extent that being with them transforms your state. It uplifts your mood. It's one of the things that when you're in a place like that, you're not even thinking about these things too. It's only when you leave that you start thinking. You're not even thinking about, oh, like, what kind of a house do I have, or, you know, like this, that, and the other. You know, because you just concerned with higher matters. That's the point. Yeah, that the heart is attached to higher realities, much greater realities, much greater. There's greater things at stake. There really is. There's more important things to life than worrying about whether you've got the latest curtains or whether you've got an extra room in your house. I mean, if you want an extra room in your house, then adopt a child. Really, like they say, the one criteria the government have, the one criteria they have for you adopting a child is for you to have an extra room in your house. So if you've got extra rooms in your house, mashallah. Now that's an intention, to work and have an extra room in your house, or 2 or 3. So you can then adopt children, you can foster children, you can look after these Muslim children. Remember, we were sat with our teacher, Habib Umar, and we explained to him about the crisis in the UK. There's children from Muslim households who are being abandoned and being brought up by non-Muslims. So they're basically leaving their religion, they're becoming non-Muslims. And he said, he looked at us and he said, what, Muslims don't want to take care of their own children? Like, have I understood that correctly? We were like, yeah. And he couldn't even process it. This is a man of fitrah, of the natural. He couldn't understand, how is it that there's Muslim children and other Muslims are not taking care of them? They're being taken care of by Christians, by atheists, by homosexuals, whoever it might be. And, like, we know this for certain. I mean, I've been to those places where they go, and like I've visited like a place where you go and you know, like you're looking to adopt a child, and the majority of people there were homosexual, from my experience, 60–70%. So Allah Ta'ala, what's going on out there. But these are the kind of things that we need to be looking at. As Muslims, we should be not taking care of our children. We should be taking care of children, full stop. So to be in a situation where we're not even taking care of others, when we've got all the spare rooms that we need, yeah, this is having to reprogram. That Imam al-Nawawi, he says that if you are working for charity, for sadaqah, you are working to give out, to benefit others, that's not dunya. That's not dunya. Dunya is when you're working just for pleasure, yeah, just to enjoy yourself. No, take care of your needs, and the khalas, you've taken care of your needs, and it's very easy to take care of your needs. It really is very, very, very easy to take care of your needs. Then after that, give out to others. Okay, so he's talking. So then he says, "Wa asafahu kayfa yuhaqqiru rabbul ibad amran wa anta tu'azzimuhu." Yeah. So he says, you know, like, what regret? How is it that the Lord of creation, the Lord of like everybody, yeah, how is it that He says something is low? Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the dunya is something despicable, something lowly, and you make it something great. فَيَحْتَحْيِي عَلَى نَفْسِهِ مِنْ ذَلِكَ حَتَّى يَتَسَاقَطَ لَحْمُ وَجْهِهِ مِنَ الْخَجْلِ وَالْحَيَاءِ. Yeah, that this person will be so like ashamed of this, that they mention the example that's given, that the flesh from his face will fall out of shame. Yeah, لأن في قلبه شيء من تعظيم الدنيا, because in his heart was something that exalted this dunya. Man أنه ترك السيئات وفعل الطاعات, alongside the fact that he left bad actions and he did good things. However, ولكن لم يتصف قلبه من تعظيم الدنيا التي أبى الله أن يتساوي جناح بعوضة. However, he wasn't able to remove, yeah, he wasn't able to remove this ta'zeem of the dunya from his heart, yeah, which in the sight of Allah, this is the point, in the sight of Allah, the dunya is nothing. It's not even worth like a gnat's wing. You look at a little fly, yeah, or a little ant, like a tiny creature. Just look at the wing of that fly. absolutely insignificant, isn't it? This is an analogy that's been given in the Arabic language. A gnat's wing, like the smallest thing you can think of, and then the wing of that thing. So the smallest thing you can possibly imagine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't even give that much weight to the dunya. He doesn't give any weight to it whatsoever. And this is the point here, is that it should hold no value in our hearts. Now the great statement of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam was the great zahid. The great zahid, he said that mud and gold are the same to me. Mud and gold are the same. So if he's got money, he's happy. If he hasn't got money, he's happy. If he loses it tomorrow, his heart doesn't move and murmur. Now this is the point that we're trying to make, because it doesn't affect your relationship with Allah. The key we've got to understand is Allah gives dunya to those who he loves and those who he doesn't love as well. But he only gives religion, deen, understanding, fiqh of the deen, understanding of the religion to those who he loves. So there's nothing there. Like they told, look at the famous hadith in Sahih Muslim. It talks about this man who's disheveled, like a homeless, like what we would call like in our, like misunderstanding, we use like a tramp, a street tramp or something like that. But these are really exalted people. Yeah, this he's disheveled. Yeah, his clothes are dirty, his hair's all over the place. Yeah, who knows when he's last eaten? He's wondering. I said, this person who's disheveled, said you would reject him from your house. If he knocked on your door, you would reject him. Say, get out, you come into my house. Yeah, because if he came for your daughter in marriage, you would laugh. This man comes to marry your daughter. He goes, yet if he demanded from Allah, if he asked Allah, if he demanded, he screamed out, Ya Allah, he demanded it. I want this right now. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give it to him immediately. These are at least, so our understanding is different. We don't have a Protestant understanding of the world, which is like spiritual success is measured by material success. No, we reject that completely. There's no relationship whatsoever. If anything, it's the opposite. Yeah, but really the reality has got nothing whatsoever. The dunya has got nothing to do with this affair. We're talking about safa, purity, we're talking about connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's nothing to do with like where you are in a worldly sense. He has no value. So just forget about it. And Imam Ghazali says the problem that we have, why is Imam Ghazali so radical, saying just get rid of the dunya? Why? Because he's saying it's just distract, it takes too much headspace. You waste too much time thinking about dunya. And therefore, you don't have any time to reflect upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the realities of life, to remember God. With like in turn, the one thing you say, subhanallah, on your tongue. What about having your heart present? Your heart's elsewhere. That's why they say the prayer, for one unit of prayer of someone whose heart is not connected to the dunya, who's free of the dunya, is better than 1,000 units of prayer of a distracted heart. This is the point, we're becoming distracted. People spend night and day in just tricks, stratagems of gaining and acquiring more. How can I make more? How can I increase my bank balance? And they don't realize that's just taking them to destruction. It's taking them to destruction. We have things in balance, and we don't think about this. We go, we seek our means, we take our income and khalas, and that's it, that's done. We've got greater matters to worry about. We really do. This is why they say there's a difference between the zahid and the dhakir. The zahid is the one who, when the dunya is shown to him, when he sees like something, he struggles and he rejects it. That's the zahid. Like, so the nice car goes past, he struggles, and no, I'm not interested in that. I've got better. That's like he's struggling. The dhakir, the one who remembers Allah, there's no struggle. He doesn't even see the dunya. He sees it and he doesn't notice it, because he's engrossed in remembrance of Allah. That's the point. He has a much greater, a much sweeter happiness in his life. Yeah, the sweetness of his life is not gained through this material realm. It's gained through a connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he doesn't even notice what's going on. Yeah, his heart has got no interest. He doesn't even notice what's going on. That's the point that we're trying to make here, is that these people are people of detachment. That's if you look at someone like Imam Ghazali, Imam Ghazali would say the first stage is that you just give it up. Give it up. And then the second stage is you become indifferent. Yeah, so first you give it up, and then you just don't care whether you have it or you don't. That's a higher stage. Now, how do we get to that stage? Imam Ghazali says first you just got to get it out of your life, and then as time goes on, then even if it comes into your life, you don't care anyway. Yeah, that's one thing. That's one rank, to be somebody who just doesn't care. That's a higher rank. But how do you attain that? That's the point that's been referred to here. So he mentions this, and then he says, مر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على شاة ميتة فقال أترون هذه الشاة هينة على أهلها قالوا من هوانها ألقوها قال والذي نفسي بيده إلا الدنيا أحمن على الله من هذه الشاة على أهلها. Yeah, so the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he walked past like a carcass, an animal's carcass, yeah, and he said to you, this is the look at the magnificence of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. Look at the intellect, look at the ability to reflect. This is a heart that's clear of dunya. He had no dunya in his heart. So when he saw realities, when he saw things, he saw haqa'iq. He reflected upon them deeply. Da'imul fikr. He was constantly in reflection. Laysat lahu raha. He didn't have rest. He didn't take a break. He didn't have a rest. He was constantly in reflecting and worshipping his Lord in all situations and all states. So now he sees a dead carcass. What would we say? What would we think? We would just say, that's disgusting. And he'd move on. He has a deeper, what does he say? He's teaching. إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ مُعَلِّمًا. Yeah? إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was only sent as a teacher. I was only sent to complete and perfect human character. This is why, so every single moment of his life he's teaching. He sees a dead carcass and he starts to teach. So he said, what does he say? They say a dead carcass. He says, can you not see this carcass is something despicable? The people who have this carcass, they don't put any value on this carcass, do they? Because they've just chucked it out. Yeah, it's despicable. And the Sahaba says, yeah, because they thought it was despicable, they've just cast it out. Obviously, there's no value. If there was value to it, they would keep it. And then he says, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ, by the one whose my soul is in his grasp, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Indeed, the dunya is more despicable to Allah than this dead carcass is to this household. Yeah, and then he says, وَلَوْ كَانَتِ الدُّنْيَا تَعْدِلُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ جَنَّاهَ بَعُودَةٍ مَا سَقَى كَافِرًا مِنْهَا شُرْبَةَ مَا. Yeah, that he says that if this dunya was way just had the value of just one, like a gnat's wing, if you just had that type of value, then we wouldn't have given a disbeliever even a sip of water to drink. Yeah. So in other words, the point like we mentioned, Allah gives dunya to everybody. It's no criteria for measuring anything. فَلِمَاذَا تَتْرُكُ لَهَا فِي قَلْبِكَ مَحَلًا بعد هذا الكلام من الحبيب الأجل أليس هو أصدق قائل من الخلائق أم هل عندك شك في كلامه الله يربطنا به إن شاء الله. Yeah. So he's saying now, he says that why do we leave a place in our heart for the dunya after what we've just heard from the Prophet ﷺ, the beloved to the high and the exalted? Yeah. And then he says, do we not believe? Do we not believe what he says? Is he not the most truthful amongst all of creation? Or do we have doubt? Do we have doubt in his kalam? This is the question. Yeah, and this is what they call uslub al-khitabi. He's now speaking directly to the heart. This is the power of this type of communication. Speaking directly to you. Do you have doubt? Do you not believe that? Yes, we do believe that. But then what's the problem? I remember many years ago we did a course on parenting. I might mention this before because it really irked me at the time. It was just really like a profound experience for me personally. We had a course on parenting with one of our teachers, Sheikh Burhan from Derby. And one of the classes, he spoke for about 15-20 minutes. He spoke about the upbringing of the Prophet ﷺ. And he said his upbringing was one of extreme, radical simplicity. He had very, very little. Yeah, he had very little food to eat. He had a very, very difficult upbringing. And he also mentioned Fatima Zahra, the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, had a very, very difficult upbringing materially. She was denied material, every type of material thing you can think of. And so he said, do we not believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the best to his Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Of course we do. Do we not believe that the very best upbringing that could possibly have been given to a human being was given to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Do we not believe he was the best parent and he raised his blessed daughter, the most beloved of all his children, on the best upbringing? Yes, we do. So why do we not then do the same? Why do we pamper our children? Why do we give them 5 different types of food? However many different means? Why do we do it? And then at that stage now, this is cognitive dissonance. We know it's true, but we're not going to follow it. We're not going to follow it, are we? We're just going to continue to do. And this is what he was saying, and it was disturbing for people. We had about 50 people in that class, yeah? And then the next day, the next month when we had it, there was about 6 or 7 people left. People left, and people complained, oh, this is too much. This is against the instincts of a mother, instincts of a father. How can we be cruel to our children? Yeah, so Allah Ta'ala, maybe that's going to happen to my class now. Everyone's going to leave, yeah. But this is the realities. This is the reality. The Prophet ﷺ, his way is the best way. Yeah, dunya and akhirah. Yeah, every piece of advice that he gives is the best. There's no better way to live. There's no better way to be. And like, this is one of the diseases of our time. It's like, oh, no one can tell me what to do. No one can tell me how to raise my children. No one can tell me how to live my life. Yeah, well, the Prophet ﷺ can. He's got the authority. Okay, fair enough, I don't, but he's got the authority. He's got the authority to give you the best way for your dunya and for your akhirah. So it's just for us a matter of taslim, surrender. Once we realize, our intellect realizes that he's the best of creations, afdal khalqillah, wa ajmalu khalqillah, ahsanu khalqillah, akmalu khalqillah, the most complete, beautiful, perfect of creation. Once we recognize that intellectually, which is very easy to do, it's obvious, it's plain around us. Look at the Prophet ﷺ, his exalted status. Yeah? Once we understand that, then we just submit to his way. We just submit to his way and take our own personal inclinations out of the equation. It doesn't really matter what we think, to be honest. It doesn't matter. Because the Rasul spoken, he's told us. The Prophet has spoken, so why does our way matter? Why does what we think really matter when the Rasul, the Supreme One, he's spoken, he's told us about the way to be. So it's just upon us to just follow that way and just let go. Really leave it all aside. Yeah. Now, why are you working full time? Really, why are you working full time? So you can maintain a standard of living? Don't. Use that time for something better. Use that time to be with your family and worship Allah through serving your family. Use that time to serve your community, your neighbor. Use that time to gain knowledge. The Arabic course you wanted to go on that you've never been able to do. The Quran that you wanted to read that you couldn't ever do. Use it for these things. Use it to remember Allah. Use it to draw closer to your Lord. Don't waste your life on things that you don't even need. You'll be happier with less anyway. I'm telling you, you'll be happier with less. The Fakir have tried it. It's a much, much happier life. You have no anxiety because you've got nothing in the bank account anyway. What's there to worry about? I might lose my savings. What savings? Yeah, this might happen to my house. There's nothing in my house anyway that anyone wants to take. So your life becomes simpler and happier. And then you have time to worship Allah. You have time to be with Allah. And there's no greater sweetness than the remembrance of Allah. Really, by Allah, there's no greater sweetness in the world than remembering your Lord with intimacy and uns and close and mahabba and love. There's no greater pleasure. There's no greater pleasure than that. There's no greater pleasure than remembering the Rasul as if you see him. There's no greater pleasure than that. And the more you do it, the sweeter it becomes. Yeah, this is what we were created to do. We were created to know Allah and to worship him. We weren't created to increase bank balances and to live in bigger houses. We weren't. So just let it go. Just let it go and focus on what really matters in life. Inshallah ta'ala. We ask Allah for tawfiq. Yeah, so he talks about this and then he goes on, he says, والآن نختم كتاب القرآن. So okay, he's talking about a book that he's finishing. ذكر فيه قوم غرر أسنتشبه بهم ونقص الأثر وتعياب له من السير فينا وفي من يجالسنا وتحصل إن شاء الله. This is very important. So he's talking about this book that they read, this book that they completed. This is from one of Habib Umar's lectures. This part of the book we're reading, and this book is like a biography on a great Imam, Muhammad bin Ali bin Alawi Khard Ba'alawi. Yeah, so he died like in 960. So the point here that he's making is that these people, these great figures of the past and the present, these ulama, these real scholars who practice their knowledge. Yeah, the scholars, they have knowledge, but they practice it with sincerity. These types of people, they are the examples for us. Take their example. How do they live? How do they interact with people? How do they behave? These are our shining lights. Yeah, and so he says, take them as an example and leave everyone else behind. They have no value. No one else. I mean, who really cares? This is one of the crises we have now in the Muslim world. One of the crises in the Muslim world that we have right now is that, and we were there, like in Morocco, it's bad. Even in parts of Yemen now, it's the same. Is that people are just following whoever, movie stars, musicians, whatever it might be. Yeah, people that really are, like they have no. I mean, who are these people? We don't know anything about their personal lives. Why are you going to dress, talk, walk, and behave like these individuals when you have before you shining examples? Same question we have to ask ourselves. We have examples of how we should be living our life. And we have examples to this day. There's always a group on the face of the earth. ظاهرين في الأرض. They're apparent on the face of the earth who are calling to truth and showing you the way of the Prophet ﷺ. They still exist to this day. So follow their way. Yeah, follow their way. Like the beauty here, like if I'm just going to talk, for example, in our context, we have people that, like in our context, we have the last of Sheikh Ibrahim Osiefa. Yeah, he's those of us who live in the north of England. So we have somebody living in the 21st century in the north of England, in our neighborhoods, yeah, who's showing you how to live the prophetic life. I mean, like, what more do we need? It's not like you've got to go to, an example from the past, or you've got to go to example from a different country. He's right there. You got Dr. Abu Farouk Abdullah in the United States of America. Today, right now, he's showing you, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, Sheikh Abdul Murad, they're showing you right now how to live your life. They're showing you, practical examples, day in, day out, of how to interact, how to be with people, how to deal with the world, how to have your heart free from dunya, free from any type of desire for anything low, and to seek your Lord in every moment. They're showing you. So we know within our context, we know what we have to do. We just ask Allah for tawfiq, just for us to be able to follow them. And it takes courage. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's easy. It takes courage. It takes bravery. It takes daring. It's risky from a perspective. You have to just let it all go and go with that. Yeah, and to just let go. I mean, it's the nafs really that's going to be screaming like this wild baby. But no, I need this. It's just the nafs. It's just your own ego that's going to be screaming out. Just like Ramadan. That's what happens in the first 2-3 days of Ramadan. Yeah, the baby starts to scream. Then it calms down after a while and you realize it's not going to get food. It's the same thing here. You have to take that step. And once you take that step, by Allah, the faqir, I'm doing a 9 to 5 for 7 years. And the last 7 years have been the happiest years of my life, to be honest. Yeah, so just the point that we're trying to make here is to free your heart. Really, this is free, this is liberation, freedom. Yeah, so that you can pursue a higher calling in life. Yeah, you can pursue higher meanings, and you can attain and achieve what really matters. Even if just a handful of people did that, it would be enough to be able to transform these lands. Really, it would. It would be enough if people just took this path seriously with sidq, yeah, and they would become an example for others. So we ask Allah for tawfiq to allow us to become those types of people, inshallah ta'ala, who are willing to just let go of the dunya. People of bravery, of courage. We're willing to let go and to live a higher and more beautiful existence. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll pause there. If there's any questions, inshallah, further we'll take questions. Inshallah. I'm assuming there might be some questions after that, but there might not be. People might have understood it and want to implement, inshallah. Okay, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala sayyidina Muhammad wa sallam. Alhamdulillah.